What would you do if you were told you had no rights to your own child? What if the person you love most, the one you promised to protect, was taken from you, not by tragedy, but by law? My guest today faced that impossible moment, and instead of giving up, he decided to fight back, not just for himself, but for every child who deserves access to both parents. His story is one of heartbreak, resilience, and the relentless belief that love is worth fighting for. Welcome back to It's Your Story to Tell. I'm your host, Megan Babcock, and today we're diving into a conversation that hits at the heart of my family: justice and redemption. My guest, Greg Hill Jr., President and CEO of Our Children's Have Rights, an organization committed to protecting children's rights to have access to both parents. Greg, thank you for being here, for being willing
Thank
to
you.
share your story and how you turned something that was hard and painful to be something that's making a difference in the lives of other people. We were talking as we got started here before we hit record just about how this is a complicated system
Hey,
when we enter into it, and you're going to help us walk through your story and how you learn to navigate the system. And then we'll talk about in part two how you are using that to help others.
thank you. Thank you for having me again. Yes, my name is Greg Hill. I'm the CEO of Our Children Have Rights and the co-founder of Our Children Have Rights. And so, yeah, we can dive right into the story. So, I'd like to take you guys on a journey with me, right? So let's get into the why our children have rights. In 2016 or so, I was able to conceive a son in the state of New Jersey. And I bought a house to move closer to mom because we weren't together once we found out we were pregnant. So I've tried to, do the right thing and move closer to mom and help mom with our son. And 3 weeks before he was born, mom moves to Florida. So being the man that I am, I said, okay, if that's what she wants to do, I will still close that gap and protect my son's right to have access to me, our son's rights to have access to me. So, I did what everyone would do. I got a lawyer, a family recommended lawyer. I'm thinking that this lawyer is going to help protect my son's right to have access to both of us. Well, that's when I went through mediation and it was the furthest from the truth. So I left mediation ordered to pay $1,141 a month for a son that had no access to me. So at this time I had zero overnights. Uh, what I asked for, went through in the documentation. And so I really got, what I like to say, I got railroaded in the process of mediation. And it's not the mediation's fault or mediator's fault. It's just because I didn't know how mediation was supposed to work. Right. So now I go home. For about 3 months, I felt as if I failed this young man as a father. Got into a really dark place and I started drinking a bottle of liquor a day in this really dark place, feeling down on the young man, feeling down on myself, feeling as if I didn't do what needed to be done to protect him. And so I'm there, I'm going through that dark stage, and then the light bulb goes off. And I say, okay, well, if I'm going to do this process, I will do it my way. So I began to read, research, go online, go on anything that I could, law libraries, anything that I could to get the information that I needed. I was trying to understand, what am I missing? What are they trying to tell me, to be an accountable parent? And so once I found that information, I was then able to go back and compare what I read to my actual documentation. And I found out that my documentation was all wrong, right? So now I fire everyone. And now I'll say this, I'm not anti-lawyer, but I am pro parents being educated for themselves. So I fired everyone, and then I go to the courthouse and I represent myself. It took me maybe about 75 motions to get to where, I really got a plan that was really in his best interest, but I kept going back, kept going back. And so Long story short, I was able to go and get everything adjudicated to where now I have overnights, and now my son will have that 50-50 access to me. I was able to prove or show about the insurance, all the things that the courts and the state will use to calculate on the agreement. I was able to show that I had these things in my favor. And with
Mm.
that information, I was able to get it adjudicated and adjusted to where now my son has 50-50 access to me, and now I'm paying $124 a month. So I got it dropped from 1141 down to 124, and now my son has 50 access to me. So it went from 0 overnights to now, 50-50 access. And so I leave that courtroom feeling as if, I had achieved some things, feeling as if, I had won. And then the light bulb goes off again. Okay, well, there are other people who are going through this same thing. Maybe they just don't know. And so that's when I wrote the book, Our Children Have Rights, in efforts to educate the masses on what I didn't know going through this process. And that's what we've been doing with Our Children Have Rights. The entire organization, focus on what we call our three pillars. The first one is education, because we have a lot of parents who go through this process and they have no idea where to start. They have no idea how any of this works. And so we want to educate those parents first. And then that second stage is, where's your mind, right? I want to get your mind in the right place. What are you thinking? How are you feeling? We have to get those things to where you're at a homeostasis now so you can actually think properly while you're going through this process. And then that third stage is the legal aid and documentation review. While I'm not a lawyer, we're not lawyers, we are parents who have that lived experience. And so we can help show parents, some of the tricks of the trade and some of the things that, they can avoid, or some of the things they may want to try, or some of the things they may want to put in their documentation to help them go through things like mediation, help them be educated when they're ready to speak to a lawyer or when they're ready to speak to the judges to go and protect these children's rights to have access to them. And so that's the
That's so
mission of our
awesome.
children. That's the mission of Our Children Have Rights. Our mission is to protect children's rights to have access to both parents equally by
Mm.
providing these parenting resources. And so now over time, we've been able to convert this into, instead of just that streamlined process, now we have a whole wellness program where we help parents with employment, we help them with housing, we help them with, daycare, we help them with any and everything that we can to make sure it's a holistic approach for these families. It's
Wow.
what we don't have those HR.
I just love the holistic approach is just my passion, being that I'm a nurse, but then I've had my own trauma and healing and how that impacts our ability to regulate and be in those really stressful environments in front of the court or when you're parenting your kids and how you show up and how important it is. What if healing didn't start with fixing, but with presence? In a world overwhelmed by pain and crisis, people don't need more advice. They need someone who can hold space, someone grounded, compassionate, prepared. Sacred Presence is a 6-week intensive that equips you to walk with the hurting through a trauma informed, spirit led lens. Whether you're a ministry leader, coach, parent, or simply someone who longs to show up well, this is where you learn to bring peace where there's chaos, hope where there's heartbreak, and wisdom where others only see wounds. You'll walk away with practical tools, spiritual depth, and the confidence to be a healing presence in any room. This isn't just a training, it's transformation. Join us, be equipped, and become the safe place someone's been praying for. Sacred Presence, Preparing Healers for Trauma Care, can be found on the itsyourstorytotell.com website. Go and get registered today. I'd love to ask a couple questions about that moment when you walked away from the mediation
Mhm.
and you felt like you had your child taken from you, or where you didn't accomplish to get the access that is best for him, not just you, but for him
Mhm,
as well. And you were talking about drinking and unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I
mhm,
think if anybody's listening and they're in that dark spot, you're not alone, because this is unbelievably painful. And
mhm,
sometimes you walk away and you have, I don't even know how I'm living this reality. At least that was my feeling, like, how can this even be real? My daughter's father goes to the court and gets an emergency order, and all of a sudden she's taken from me with like no evidence. No, how is this possible? And it set us on a 2-year in the courts and all the expense. I did not understand. We had spent over
mhm,
$300,000 on this process, and it just kept going and going. And so it was very difficult to continually be in a healthy mindset.
mhm.
So tell me, what was it for you that allowed you to switch out of that mindset of, I don't know if you would describe it as a victim mindset. I know that was for me for a while. I didn't think I had any power in it.
Mhm.
How did that change for you to go so extreme to being like, okay, I'm ready to go learn and make this look different?
Well, I think you said a word while you were speaking that really is the point of all this, right? You said understand or understanding. That's where a lot of us go into fight or flight because we don't understand what's actually happening. And so it was when I understood that I was in fight or flight mode, I was angry all the time. I was in a dark place all the time. I was unhealthy for not only me, but for everybody around me. And then I noticed that people didn't want to be around me. Nobody wanted to talk to me. Nobody wanted to be that support that I needed. And so I said, okay, all right, you guys are walking away from me. So either I'm going to change this or I'm going to do something different. This is just what it's going to be for the entirety of this process. And so I begin to say, okay, this is enough about me. And I have to make it about him.
Mm,
And so once I saw that, I saw people saying, "Hey, I can't do this with you anymore. I can't have this conversation with you. I don't know how to help you in this situation." So that's when I began to say, "Oh, what am I missing? What is going on? What am I not understanding here?" And so I took pride in being, a college graduate, a successful, professional, and said, "Okay, I'm a professional here. I'm a graduate. I can do things that could help this process." And so then I just began to read, right? And then the light bulb just kept going off like, okay, I'm reading these things, but according to the law, according to the documentation, according to what I'm reading, what I actually have in my plan is wrong. And so that's when everything started to turn. When I began to focus more on the process and the documentation in our son, instead of focusing on what was being done to me. See, I was making it personal when I needed to make it all about business.
right.
Right. I had to adjust that approach. Like, listen, this is all business, nothing personal. Get out of that, get out of your feelings a little bit. Understand what's being said to you, understand what's in the documentation. And if you want to address it, find out how you address and you adjust it. And then once I took that approach, then
Right.
I began to get more success going through the courts. I began to gain more success in what I was actually trying to get done. And that's what this book was about. Like some of the successes that I had, some of the processes that I went through. And I say it all the time, I was able to write about the skeleton where everybody else had you have to fill in the meat of your own process. But I can give you that
Mhm.
skeleton. I can tell you some of the things that but you have to get these adjusted. Now, how you adjust them, that may be on, what's going on with you. But here's a skeleton on how to get these things done. So it really turned around when I began to focus more on the process of protecting him instead of focusing on what was being done to me. And that changed it all the way around.
I think that's so powerful, because when we are in that mode of fight or flight and we feel that we have to keep defending ourselves, but we don't have the knowledge yet to
Mhm.
defend ourselves, it just becomes an emotional battle. And showing up in that way can actually harm you
Absolutely.
in the court's eyes, right? If you're not able to come in and remain regulated and show up with factual information, it does get dismissed. And I think one of the things in the process that I went through that was really powerful for me was when I also said, "Okay, let me step back. This
Mhm,
this isn't about me. Like I know who I am
mhm.
and I don't need to respond to every little thing. What I need to do is get my facts in order. I
Yes.
need to be able to document the things that are being said in a way that it's not the he said, she said. And that's hard to do because it's our natural instinct to want to defend when there's misinformation, or most of us have a justice mindset. We don't want to see injustices happen. So
Mhm,
we want to cry out and speak out about it. And unfortunately, I think you could see this throughout our world. We become less effective when it's just who's yelling louder, but who can actually put things together in a way that can influence and change people's mind, because it's easy for them to see what's happening
mhm,
in this. I love that you're talking about that. And that was for me where I began to feel like I had a part in this of
mhm.
putting things together, which when you can start taking action, that also helps to calm your nervous system
That's right.
because you're able to do things. That's why our body wants to fight or flight, it wants to run. But if you can
Mhm,
harness that into something that's healthy, it can be really powerful. If you are a parent who is walking through what feels unimaginable and you feel that you're unseen by the system and you don't know where to turn, come back. You're going to hear some more insights into some next steps that you can take, because we're here not to just talk about the hard of going through the process within the system, but to really empower you so that you can make a difference for your family, because your child deserves to have you in their life. Thanks for listening.